On today's episode, I'm honored to welcome Erica Gifford Mills, a transformational coach, best-selling author, and radio host who didn't always walk the path she's on now. After nearly 30 years in the corporate and legal world, Erica made a courageous decision. She left the career she was supposed to follow, risking stability to pursue her true calling. She started Symmetree to help women break free from burnout, reconnect with purpose, and lead deeply rooted, intentional lives. As a mother and a survivor of her own challenges, Erica brings heart, strength, and authenticity to her work, inspiring others to rise not from hustle, but from healing. Hi, Erica. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Erica. And I'm truly honored to be here on the My Fit Try podcast.
You came into my perspective because you did the Wen stories, and our listeners who are familiar with our podcast know that Wendy Babcock, who started Wen stories, was on our podcast last January, I believe. And I love it when all these relationships open up more relationships, and that synergy that happens is so cool. But before we get into that, let's just talk a little bit about what you talked about in your Wen story about your challenges over the last few years. You had suffered through breast cancer. So what was your life like, 5-10 years ago before you started this Symmetree project?
So I would say it was title chasing. What's the next thing I can do? What's the next thing I can prove myself to be a leader? And it led to really burnout, resentfulness, and as you said in your opener, thank you very much. I am an international speaker and an author and a leadership coach and a dog mom, as we can see here. But but before all those titles and all those stage moments in the books, the proudest I was a mom. And so everything I do, every workshop, every keynote, every book I write is really rooted in lived experience, resilience, and community. And my work is about empowering women to live, love, and lead from the inside out. And I wasn't doing that years ago. And that's when I knew I needed a change. And I felt, if I need this change, I'm sure there's other women out there that are feeling the same way.
Yeah, life is really busy. And, I did another podcast earlier today where I talked so much about the noise. Like, there's so much information, there's so much right at our fingertips to get instantly, but it just creates this noise where sometimes it's really hard to turn that volume down, even just with everyday life, work and stress. And, everybody has that. So, let's talk a little bit about your journey then that allowed you to realize that what you were doing wasn't working.
Yeah. And I believe we all have that win moment, that moment when life shifts, it breaks open, or demands something deeper from us. And sometimes it arrives gently, right? For people, it comes to a natural realization or a natural kind of evolution. And sometimes it doesn't. It comes in like a storm. And for me, it came in during a season of loss, identity shift, and facing truths I didn't want to face. And that was the moment I realized I can either stay buried by life or root down and rise up.
Let's spend a few minutes. Let's talk about your son. Can you tell us about him?
Oh, my son, United States Marine Sergeant Connor Mills, my pride, my joy. He definitely was my everything, still is. And the best job I've ever had was that of a mother. And I wasn't supposed to be able to have him. And I was blessed with 24 years with him. And even knowing what I know today and what would happen, I would do it all over again in a heartbeat, just for that love and that time with him. Unfortunately, he had some issues that weren't known, weren't aware of, and he took his own life in September of 2024. And it's unfortunately something that we know a lot happens with our youth, but also in the military for active military and veterans, where they don't know how to stop being resilient and start asking for help. And that is something that, even though my platform is in women's empowerment and leadership, my personal advocacy is on mental health awareness and for active military and veterans, because we need to do more. They give them of themselves every day, for all of us, for our freedom, for fighting for what's right. And I don't think we do enough to fight for them and to make sure that they know their life is, the world is better with them in it.
When I listened to your Wen story, you talk about that moment where the soldiers showed up at your door.
Yes.
And as I'm listening to it, my heart drops, my breath stops, my eyes tear up because it was so powerful because you can just envision that moment and what no mother wants or father for that matter wants to even put themselves in that position of having to go through something so challenging. Are you
Yeah,
comfortable? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's literally like the movies. I mean, and I say that not in a good way, right? But when you see it in a movie where you have somebody drive up in a government vehicle and they come out in uniform, they literally hand you a piece of paper and they say, on behalf of the United States Marine Corps, I regret to inform you of the passing of your son. It is literally that. And these kids, and I say kids, these two young gentlemen were not even older than my son. And they have to go and give the worst news imaginable to people that they don't even know. These people didn't serve with my son, literally serve. They, of course, are serving. They're in the Marines, but they didn't know him, and they have to go give this very personal message. And they can't answer questions because they don't know. All they know is give this delivery. And so I know in that moment, as much as I was devastated and hurting, I felt so bad for them because what a horrible thing that they have to do is give that unimaginable news to someone. And who knows how they're going to react? I mean, are they going to, lash out at them? Are they going to be upset? And, looking back, I remember trying to just like, I can control this. I can, can I get you guys something to drink? Do you need anything? And it was me trying to kind of put myself away from the moment. Um, but it was so painful. But because of everything that I went through in the years before, I realized I need to be strong. It doesn't mean I don't feel the feelings. I just try not to unpack and stay there. And I don't think there'll ever be anything worse that I go through in my life than that moment. But if I can turn that pain into purpose, my wounds into wisdom to help another family, another person, then I'm going to honor my son in that way.
And what a beautiful way to honor him. We you talked about the mental health, especially with our soldiers, and I mentioned that I have a friend of the family who lost their daughter recently to suicide,
Yes.
and I feel like mental health is really a crisis that we know is seems to be getting worse, especially for our young people. Yet we still sometimes don't even have a conversation about it. What are
Right.
you since that happened, like, what are you finding when now that you're, having that conversation more out in the public and on these podcasts? Like, is there anything that's really come to, your awareness as far as, people having that conversation?
I think it's getting better. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. Because when somebody goes, oh, how'd your son pass? And I said, he took his own life. And everybody else goes, oh, and it's a whisper. And
Mm.
it's like, you don't need to whisper. It's if somebody has cancer, you don't whisper about it. But if you look back probably 50, 60 years ago, you didn't say the C word. You whispered it, right? So now look at everything out there about cancer and how they're fighting it and how they're getting ahead of it, trying to prevention. And for me, that's what I want to do now is that let's talk about it. So it becomes so normal that when somebody's feeling that they can't go on, that they are hurting so much that they think this is the best way is to end my life because I can stop the pain. And that could be physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain. We can talk about it because now they're comfortable because it's not taboo. It's not something you whisper. We have to have the voices be louder than the stigma and the view louder than the silence. And I'm seeing people get a little bit more open to that and allowing that. I mean, you think about it when you are with a company, a corporation, even if it's Medicaid, Medicare, marketplace, commercial insurance, you pick a PCP, your primary care physician. You pick a vision doctor. You pick a dentist. Why aren't we automatically assigned a mental health specialist as well? Because without our mind, the rest of our body doesn't work. Our mind tells us to move. Our mind tells us to get up. Our mind does all these things. It makes our body work. So a mental illness should be just as regular as that of a physical illness. If somebody broke their arm, you wouldn't say, oh, suck it up, rub some dirt on it, you're fine. You would say, you better go get that checked out. We need to do the same for mental health and become more aware of the true problems it has. And for anyone who believes um, that they've never had a mental health issue, big or small, you're either very lucky, you will, or you're lying to yourself, because we all have mental health issues at one point of our life enough. It's just a matter of to what extreme and how can we get help and how can we cope with those.
Absolutely, and there's so many forms of so many tools in the toolbox that I think people
Yes,
now are able to, again, talk about to provide help for people who are feeling that despair. Therapy can take months to get
yes,
in to see a provider, and then you don't even know if you're gonna connect with them. So how we can give, a 6-month time frame on someone who's going through crisis is just crazy to me. So I'm hopeful that, like, with the telemed industry and that we have more resources that will allow people to have those conversations with therapists to be able to help them. What other
yeah.
avenues are you seeing as far as, that toolbox that you're able to, connect with other people to learn about and to share?
Really, it's connecting one another, right? The peer support. I've been working with some organizations like Stop Social Suicide, the Mighty Oaks Foundation, that they are looking at it as peer led, because you think about it, go to a doctor. I might feel more comfortable with a female doctor. A male might feel more comfortable with a male doctor. Well, then we get into, well, I really want somebody who's experienced the same sort of things or can understand, can speak my language. So now with some of these organizations, they're realizing that peer led, so other military men and women who are working with these individuals to say, when I say I get it, I truly get it because I've been there. And I think that helps so much more, and to get that information out there. Also, making it mainstream, um, breathing techniques, mindfulness. When all that first came out, it's the woo woo, right? Oh, that's a little woo woo. And you think about it, breathing techniques are woo woo. You breathe every second of every day. It's not that. And I think as you introduce those sort of things, like an integrative approach and wellness approach into everyday life, you're going to have that come through. And really just conversations. Admit it's okay to not be okay, and having that acknowledgement and saying, you know what, I'm not okay. That is a sign of strength. It is not a sign of weakness when you can acknowledge what your body is saying to you, and your mind is part of your body. And so, how do we get that out there more?
Yeah, that's so important. And I think, the one of the good things about podcasts is that now it's an avenue where you're able to sit in the room with other people and listen without being there, right? So that comfortability is there. And there's the exposure to the, mindset version where people are going to give you insights on how to, reframe your mindset. But there's also hearing these stories of other people who, like you said, have gone through similar instances so that people don't quite feel so alone. Obviously, that doesn't replace that the peer group, but it's really nice that we now have this platform that we didn't have 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, that really provides all of this experience for people to share in.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, it's on the other side, but I went, so something I didn't want to go to, of course, nobody wanted to go to, but I went to a bereavement weekend, and it was with parents, bereaved parents of suicide loss. And it was I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't know if I really want to do it. And of course, we didn't want to be there because the reason why we were there, we lost our child. We didn't want to be there. And I'm so glad I went, because they got it,
Mm.
because it was suicide loss, right? They understood all the other questions that we have. And it's not that one person's loss is greater than the other, but it's just different, right? Everybody has a different experience. Just like if you're sick, your cancer journey is different than my cancer journey. Not that one's worse or better, it's different. And they understood, because when you go through that, you have questions on, what did I miss? What didn't I see? And you have all these things where they just got it. And when you can get into a community like that, and I bring that up because get into a community of people, right? Whether that's faith-based, whether that's a support group, whether it's just other people who have gone through other similar situations, it can give you tools that you didn't know was out there that exist. And their tool may not work for you, but you don't know until you try it. And I think that's the biggest thing is folks need to be willing to try because what worked for me might not work for you, but it could. So let's try.
Right. What if it does? What if
Yeah.
it does make that
Yeah.
difference? And then it's that ripple effect, right? Where then other
Yes.
people are able to reach out to other people and expand that feeling of community and that support, which is so important, especially at such a difficult time.
Yes. I mean, absolutely. And it is. It's the community building. And like you said, the ripple effect, because I heard of this because somebody had a friend who went to it and mentioned it to her, and she knew me. So she mentioned it. So it's like, I would have never gone. And these are people I probably talk to a couple times a week because we have a group chat when somebody's just like, it's been one of those days. And we all just rally around the person and be like, say whatever you need to say. And having that community, even if it doesn't have to be somebody that lives next door, it's somebody that you can have access to just to say, I'm having that moment.
Mm.
And sometimes we just need that. We need to say, it's okay. Let it out. Say it. And
Yeah,
it's,
that safe
yeah,
space to be able to share is so important.
absolutely.
So I'm going to back you up a bit to your speaking career and your balance symmetry. So at what point in your journey did you decide that you needed to make a change into that? I mean, you talk about the burnout at work, but what drove you to that?
Well, a little bit, and I'll give you a little background. It's so my name of my business is Balance Symmetree, TREE, which is a nod to my father, who was an arborist. And he said it was, and it was actually a day or two before he passed, which didn't know he was going to pass, but a day or two before he passed, he's like, "Are you happy with what you do?" And I'm like, "I'm good at it." He said, "Well, that's not what I asked. I asked, are you happy?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm content." And he says, "Yeah, but I love what I did. I did it every day and I loved it." Yeah, were there days that I didn't like going out when it was 10 below zero and I had like 15 layers on? No, I didn't love that part of it, but I liked what I did. And you need to love what you do. And he says, as cliche as it sounds, because if you love what you do, then you never work a day in your life. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard, but if you love it, you will go after it. And it was at that moment I said, you know what? He's absolutely right. I need to do what I want to do. And what really gives me that passion, what lights me up inside. And so when I started, I'm like, I'm gonna, do something that's a nod to him. And I was feeling very unbalanced, hence balance and play on words, symmetry. You figure something symmetrical. It's in alignment, because I don't believe that we find balance. We can create balance, but it's more about creating alignment in our lives. Because let's be honest, we're never going to be balanced. Our life isn't just one teeter totter that goes up and down, and it's not a scale. There's probably 8 to 10 different things going around on that scale at any moment in time, whether it's your mental health, your physical health, your financial health, your personal and professional development health, your friendships, your volunteering, your all your different things that are in your life. It's never balanced. Sometimes you give more to your family because it needs it. Sometimes you have something that gives more in your professional life because maybe it's a big event. And sometimes you're sick. And so now you have to pay more attention to your health. That means everything else gets tipped. So what can you do to find that alignment within that balance? And that's where I said, I need that shift. And so when I started doing a lot of my speaking engagements and looking at things, I looked at being like a tree because I often found solace in trees, whether that's going for shade, climbing a tree to seek a different perspective. And I started looking at leadership. One of the biggest questions I asked is, why do so many people know how to lead others, but not themselves?
Mm.
And I think traditional leadership focused on skills and performance, which don't get me wrong, skills and performance have to be part of the equation, but it shouldn't be all. Real leadership starts at the root. It really starts at your identity, your boundaries, and your resilience. So I try to teach leadership like a tree. And that's what kind of launched me out. And the rooted leadership model is you have roots, which is your values, your boundaries, your identity. You have the trunk, which is your consistency and your resilience. You've got the branches, which is your relationships and influence. And then you've got the leaves or the fruit, which is your impact and your legacy. And that's where I try to teach them that it takes all of that. And if you're not leading authentically from your roots and then are consistent in building that relationship and leaving an impact, how are you truly leading?
That's really powerful. It makes whenever I have these conversations, I reflect into my own life, right? And, there's times for me, when we downsized our business, I had reached a point in my life where I had found success that I never imagined. And then I had to kind of pivot and find what's next. And that can be hard for women, and
Oh,
men,
yeah.
but when you're dealing with, maybe kids out of aren't living at home anymore, or you're just burned out of your career or making that change. And then having the courage to not only start it, but then to see it through because you're going to hit those bumps in the road that might throw you off. So what do you tell your clients when even just starting the process of like, where do I even start with that?
Well, a couple of things, because I get that. Like, after, it's funny is that when my son passed, I was like, people ask, you go someplace and they're like, oh, do you have kids? And I was like, no, yes. Like, I didn't know how to answer. And it's kind of like when your kids go off to college, to the military, they leave home, you become an empty nester. Your identity, right? Like, oh, I don't know what my identity is anymore. And when I'm talking to women who want to lead differently, I say you already do because women lead differently. I'm not saying they lead better than men or men lead better than women. We just lead differently because many times we lead with intuition, with heart, with connection. But too many times these women were taught to shrink, to minimize, or fit into a version of leadership, right? Don't get so emotional, don't do that. But I try to tell women stop asking for permission and lead with your authentic self without apology. So that's where I usually tell them to start is don't tone it down, don't soften the edges, don't wait for perfection or wait for permission. Lead from where you are, which is kind of how I got into creating my newest project, the Lead Like a Woman. Because when we're leading like a woman, living like a woman, and loving like a woman, it's about reclaiming our power and our voice and our identity. And when we can do that as women, we become unstoppable. And I think that's where we have that community, and we lift one another up because we go from girls competing to women collaborating and community over competition always.
I love that. And again, I love the fact that you talk about impact because there's a book written that talks about the second mountain. The first mountain in life is, your success, or your job, or your family. And then that second mountain is about helping others and where your impact applies. And I find that such a great guiding light as for, how to move forward is how are you impacting people? How do you want to leave a mark when people meet you? So talk about how your platform is able to really let people grow with making that impact.
I one I truly believe that we rise together. So as you're and I say figuratively, as you're climbing that ladder to whatever that success means to you, because as people's success means different things to different people. And so whatever that success is, on your way up, grab somebody else and pull them up with you. And I always, when I choose people for projects that I'm working on or collaboration books that I'm working on, it's are they willing to build that community? Are they willing to lift other people up? Because that's going to be your legacy. When you help somebody else without asking for credit, without asking for something in return, that person's going to remember it. And then you're going to be able to build on how your impression, right? You never get a second chance to make a first impression, but how do you do that long after you're gone? With the understanding too that sometimes you're not going to see the leaves or the fruit bloom. That might happen after you've long left that individual, right? Because not everybody's in your life all the time. They're maybe in your life for a reason or a season. So you might not see that full impact you have on somebody. You might hear about it a long time later, or you may never see it. But I think if we look at our networks and our communities like sunlight, people who will help you grow, not people who will drain you. And that's when we thrive. So I always tell women, thrive together, because when we're supported, when we feel seen, when we're surrounded by that, for lack of a better term, sisterhood, right? When we're surrounded by that, it fuels us. I always say, when people say you have to watch what you put into your body, no, it's not just about what you eat. It's not just about what you drink. It's about what you read. It's about people you surround yourself with. It's about what you listen to. And when you have that competitive nature or that comparison, you don't survive or thrive as you would if you have the people around you who will collaborate and build one another up.
That's so true. I've called in a couple of episodes too. It's called raising your vibration, right? And when you
Yes.
start to be exposed to people that are so positive and that, work hard for the right reasons to help other people to impact, to do it, those right things. I just think it's fun to watch. You can feel it. You can feel that vibration when you are surrounded with other people that are doing similar things, and how cool it is to really watch it grow.
Yes. I mean, and that's one of the things that, so right before my 2023 and 2024 and getting into 2025 wasn't the best, right? I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2023 and end of March, beginning of April of 2023. And I mean, it happened, right? I never said, oh, why me? But looking back, I realized I know now why I got cancer. It taught me to accept help. I don't like to ask for help. I don't like to accept help. I'm independent. I can do it myself, which is not the right attitude, right? We all need help. But having cancer taught me I needed it. I mean, went through 20 rounds of chemo, 5 surgeries, and I needed the help. And luckily, I have very strong, bossy, independent siblings who did not ask. They just pushed their way in. And I say that, and I mean it little tongue in cheek. I love them. I appreciated them so much. And they know me. So they knew they had to push their way in, because if they asked, I would have said no. Um, but it taught me how to ask for help, because when my son passed, if I didn't learn that lesson and learn that it was okay to not be okay, and learn that vulnerability is not bad, it's good, it's not a weakness, I don't know that I'd be here today. Because the loss of my son, I mean, truly, he was my world, my best friend. I don't know that I would have been here if I didn't learn those lessons over the 18 months before his death. And so grief and loss has really shaped me in ways I never imagined. Losing my son changed the way I led, the way I love, and the way I show up in the world.
Mm.
And don't get me wrong, I don't glamorize struggle, but I do honor resilience. And I also learned that healing is not linear, it's not pretty. And yet, in the cracks, when you have those moments, new strength grows. And that's so important, because one of the biggest lessons that it taught me was that we can be broken and still be brilliant. We can carry pain and still create purpose. And that, like I said, vulnerability is not weakness, it's leadership. It's that courage to stand tall and stand in your truth, even when the world expects you to stay strong and say, I'm not okay.
Wow, I can't, you know, the I'm speechless because you think about going through that cancer diagnosis is traumatic in itself, and then to be, topped with was it in 2024 when your son passed away? And then now to see how you have really truly taken that, again, not only to grow yourself and your brand and your business, but to really impact other women. It's just I'm in awe because there's gotta be days where finding that strength to get up is really hard.
Yeah, it honestly it is. I mean, I'm not saying I'm over it because by no means am I over it. Like, let me just be honest. I didn't go to bed till 4:30 this morning because I've been dreaming a lot. And I'm like, I don't want to go to bed. I don't want to dream again. I'm gonna see him again. Even though I love it, I don't. Because I wake up and then the reality hits. So there are times where it's extremely hard. And I have to tell myself that it wouldn't hurt so bad if I didn't love him so much.
Mm.
And would I want to have never known that love? And that answer is, of course not. I would do it all over again. So that's what keeps me going. And I also know that I think he would be really pissed off if I didn't keep going after what I wanted. And this just taught me you have to. You have to get out there. You have to do it. And I I truly want to honor him. I mean, I do this because I want to honor him.
He not only would be pissed off if you didn't, but he's also very proud of you for what you're doing, I'm sure. We had, my very first podcast that came out was with my friend who had lost her son, and one thing that she said that stuck with me is she goes, "I need to live my life my best to honor him. Like, what better way to honor him is to live the best life I can." And that just and we all should take note on that. This is the one life we get. We need to really live that best life, not only for ourselves, but again, to impact others, how important that is not only for the others, but for healing of ourselves.
And well, healing, but also we should never wait till something like this happens
Mm.
because our kids, our nieces and nephews, our next generation of future leaders, they're watching and people are watching. And if they see that I can go after what I want, I can and I do deserve it, people around us, the future generation around us, they're watching. They should see us do that. And that's one of the other things I try to emphasize with women is that your kids will see, are you setting appropriate boundaries? Are you communicating them? Are you doing that? Because if you're not doing it, they're going to learn that, well, my feelings, my boundaries aren't important because they saw you not doing that. And it's the same thing with leadership. Are we leading authentically? Or are we leading from a place of like imposter, I'm gonna say imposter syndrome, but like, hey, I'm doing it because this is what people say I should do. Although what if, coulda, shouldas, we don't want those.
What do you give for advice for people that are starting it, but then that fear, that little fear monster starts whispering in their ear? Let's say they wanna be, get into motivational speaking or something where they're putting themselves out there, which can be an uncomfortable space. We both
Yeah.
know that you can grow deeply from doing something uncomfortable, but
Oh yeah.
there's that fear. So what do you advise to people who are maybe have a foot on the gas, but a stronger foot on the brake pedal?
Oh, I'm there. I'm with you 100%. That fear is normal, right? Because our brains are designed to always think the worst because if you think the worst, then you know something, right? You can plan for it. But the problem with that is it makes you stop. And if you have something out there that gives you those butterflies, that scares you to death, that feels like it's like electrifying you, do it. Do the darn thing, right? Because if you don't, you will have that regret later and you'll always be wondering, what if? And even if you do it, chances are maybe you're not going to do that well the first time. And that's okay because like being a second degree black belt in Taekwondo, we always were told a black belt is just a white belt that didn't quit. So
Mm.
you're not going to be, how you are now without your with your training and everything wasn't how you started. You wouldn't be able to do moves. You wouldn't be able to do kicks. You wouldn't be able to do a form, but you practiced. You kept up with it. And that's what you need to do. Learn from your mistakes, learn from the challenges, and you will get better and better every time you go. You got to be comfy being uncomfy. And because that saying, comfort, you grow, your growth is where your comfort zone ends.
Right.
And we can all stay in that little bubble, but then you're not going to be able to achieve your dreams, because if your dreams were in that bubble, then you wouldn't be uncomfortable. You would already have it.
Yeah, so true. And then when you start doing those uncomfortable things and you accomplish them, it's very invigorating and a little bit addicting, which is kind of fun as well.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
want to talk too, because on this podcast we talk a lot. We've got, nutrition specialists and fitness specialists and coaches and doctors and all these professionals. And it's easy to do like a training protocol for those tangible things. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes for your mindset, it's not necessarily written in paper. It seems to be a little bit more difficult because you don't have a scale to measure on, right? So I think it's really important that we talk about how to train your mind. It takes time, it takes practice in order to do those hard things and to lead and to be that best version of yourself.
And I think it's important. You think about when somebody asks you, write down 5 people you love. People will start writing. And if you ask most of them, so are you on there? The first thing you should write down, if somebody says, write 5 people you love on that list, the first one should be yourself.
Mm.
And I think that sometimes many of us forget we need to love ourselves first, because that shows other people how to love us and how we deserve to be treated. Just the same thing with our minds. How are you talking to yourself? Are you giving yourself that negative self-talk, those limiting beliefs saying, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Oh, I could never pull that dress off. Oh, I don't know about that. Say to yourself, would you talk to your daughter, your niece, your best friend? Would you say those things to them? And if the answer is no, then why are you treating you, who should also be your best friend, the same way? And I think, practical tips to walk away from today is talk to yourself like somebody you love, because you do and you should love yourself the most. Your power begins when you stop waiting for permission.
Mm.
You can be broken, brilliant at the same time. You can be a work in progress and under construction and still a masterpiece. All those painful parts of you, your story, your background, it's only a chapter. And that leads you to where you need to go, because you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present and willing. And along those same lines, because I could talk boundaries all day, boundaries are not walls. Going back to my tree analogy, those are your roots. And remember that leading yourself is something you need to do before you can lead others. And then that community is strength, and community heals without that isolation aspect of it. So if you think all those things and you can get your mindset right, you're going to be unstoppable. We just have to remember, talk to ourselves as if we were our own best friend.
Yeah, there's nobody else that you spend as much time with in your life as
Nope.
yourself.
Yep.
We forget
You're going
that
to be with yourself forever.
forever. Oh my
Yep.
goodness. I want to touch base a little bit because we talked about it before the podcast, but how, you've spoken on many stages and you have that wonderful presence, and then how different it was for you to do that When Stories, because it was so personal, which is something that I struggled with too. Being on the stage is something or on the talking stage, I should say, is something that I've always wanted to do. So this was an opportunity for me, but sitting down and actually telling my story and, those fears were really loud. So talk about that difference of really having that vulnerability of sharing all that you've been through.
Yeah. Honestly, vulnerability has been always very hard for me. I've grown so much in the past, 18 months to 24 months with being vulnerable and seeing the reaction you get for somebody, because it's not that the pity, and it's not what I mean, but when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, the people around you are like, oh, I can open up too. And the connections you can make. But going up there on stage, that was the first time, because at that point it would had been 6 months after my son had passed. And I was still deeply in it, in the mourning and the grief stage and the anger stage. I was going through it all. And that was hard because I was afraid that when I got up there, I was going to start crying. And I didn't want people to see me cry because in my mind, is that a sign of weakness? Oh my gosh, they're going to see that I'm so vulnerable and I'm up here crying. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, you're going back to your old behavior.
Mm.
Who cares if somebody sees you cry? You are hurt. If you fell down the stairs and broke your leg, would you care that you cried? No. Well, my heart hurts. My mind hurts. It's okay if somebody sees you cry. And so that really, once I got up there and I realized it, that's when I was like, okay, this is going to be hard. My voice might crack. That's when you just stop and take a breath. Yes, you can still push through, but you can take a moment to breathe.
Mm.
And it was that adversity when I realized that the adversity doesn't break us, it reveals us. That's what my win taught me, that strength rose underground, the quiet, the unseen, but so powerful. And knowing I had other supportive women there who were there to be like, you got this. As I was started speaking, I just kind of relaxed. It was, and that to me was so powerful because it showed I was allowing myself to be vulnerable and people were accepting. They didn't poo-poo it. They didn't be like, oh, what is she doing? They embraced it. And that taught me, hey, this is okay.
It's more than okay. It's beautiful, and,
Yeah.
again, it gives people who are going through similar situations or any situation of adversity really to kinda sit with themselves and go, "It's okay that I am where I'm at, and this is a process," and like you said, a chapter that I need to keep flipping the page on instead of just getting paralyzed. You really, show how beautiful and how powerful that resilience of moving forward and whatever that looks like for everybody, right? It's gonna be very different.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit before we wrap up, the exciting things that you have going on, both in your speaking and with Balanced Symmetry that people can take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a couple different projects I have in the works that I'm pouring my heart into. The first one through balance symmetry and just an opportunity for some powerful women. It's the Lead Like a Woman experience. It's helping women step into their power, visibility, and influence. It's both a collaboration book and a speaking opportunity. The event is in February 19th, 2026, in just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. I have tons of information on my website. Just go out to balancesymmetree.com. That's BALANCEDSYMMETREE.com. Under the Work With Me page, you'll see the Lead Like a Woman experience. It's definitely an amazing opportunity where we're creating a network of collaboration and true sisterhood and some great tangible and intangible things that people will walk away with. The other is my military mental health advocacy, again, honoring my son's legacy by raising awareness and supporting organizations committed to active duty and veterans' well-being. And so truly everything that I'm trying to do is connected to purpose, healing, and empowerment. In July of 2026, we will hold the second annual active military and veteran mental health awareness and suicide prevention benefit, honoring my son. Benefits, and that the proceeds from all the benefits will be going to stop soldier suicide. And I'll have a bunch of information out on my website as we get closer. You can see information from last year's event out there when we did it for the very first time. And this year's going to be bigger and better and raising more money and more awareness.
Oh my gosh, you're amazing. I just have to tell you, I'm so inspired. I mean, life can be heavy for a lot of people at different times, and just to see you, feel so passionate about being able to honor your son and to help other women and to, you know, again, put yourself forward. It's so admirable, and I'm so excited to see all the things that you're doing grow. It's just so cool. So I'm very proud of you. It's just going through something so hard can really throw someone off course. And you're really inspiring a lot of people by getting back on the road.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much, and to your Fit Tribe listeners. You're creating a space for real conversation and real connection, and the world needs more of that right now. So I thank you for having this forum for everybody to connect and to listen and grow personally and professionally.
Thank you. One of the what started the seed of this My Fit Tribe, which I talk about in my When story a bit, is when I was in my bodybuilding experience, I met all these women that were focused on this goal, doing hard things, but they were so supportive of each other and really lifted each other up, and just helped if somebody needed something. And I was like, I don't have this necessarily in my everyday life. Like, what if we have this group of people again that raises that vibration? And that's where this all started, where you bring people together and it's a ripple effect, like I mentioned, that is
Yes.
really cool to watch. And again, all these different people that I'm meeting through this process that I get to connect with through different avenues, it's just, that it's happening for a reason, which is pretty cool.
And we
So
need
I'm
more people like that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going to put all the links to your website and your events and your Facebook, etc., on the show notes too, so people can find you and follow all that you're doing.
Yeah,
I'm going to
absolutely. Definitely connect with me on social media. Join the Lead Like a Woman experience. And I say experience, it's an experience, it's a movement. You do not want to miss out on that. And then, if you do have any questions, listeners can reach out to me, even email, directly, DM, however works for them. And I would say, remember to root down, rise up, and lead like the woman you were created to be.
I have goosebumps. I think that's awesome. I'm going to wrap up the podcast by asking you the question that I ask all my guests. So it's a two-part question. So if you, Erica, today could have a conversation with Erica of the past. Now, I don't know if you want to pick someone, the Erica from way in the past we didn't talk about, or that time when the Erica that had to open that door with that devastating news. What would you tell yourself?
Um, Ooh, that's a good one. So I would say, and as cliche as it sounds, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. And I have it actually tattooed on me. It's a God is greater than the ups and downs.
Mm,
And if you truly believe that he would never give you more than you can handle, and you wonder why everything's coming down the path as it is, means that you were meant for more and you were meant to serve in a different capacity. So I would say that woman who is opening the door is just God is greater than the ups and downs. And
mm.
clearly I was meant to do something else. And I will figure out what that is and continue to help.
So now if you, Erica, today can have a conversation with Erica of the future, you can pick 10, 20, 30 years from now. If you're having a conversation with her, sitting in your favorite place, what do you ask her and what do you think she'll say back to you?
I would say, hmm, that's a good question because I try not to look that far into the future because I believe life happens in the present moment. And if we look too far ahead, I mean, I think in my life, I've been disappointed where what I thought my life would be like. And when you get stuck on what you thought your life would be like, you never get out of that trench, right? You never get out of it. So I don't know what I would ask. I might ask, looking back, how many times were you covering your eyes? Like my guardian angel probably is looking like a squirrel trying to avoid traffic crossing the street, right? How many times when you looked back did you think, what on earth are you doing? And how did you get to the point you are today? Um, so I guess I would just say, would you have changed anything? I would ask her, what would you have changed? And what would you have done different?
And what do you think she would say?
And I think she would have said nothing because it wouldn't make me the person I am today. Because everything that's happened in your past, good, bad, wonderful, ugly, has made you are who you are today. And I like to think, even though I've done some bad things, made some bad decisions, maybe hasn't been the best person in my life, I've gotten to the point today where I am proud of who I am. And so I wouldn't change that because maybe I wouldn't be to this point if I didn't have those experiences.
I think you should be very proud of who you are today because you're inspiring me and many other people to really become that best version of themselves and giving them the tools and resources to do so. So thank you
Thank
again
you.
for all you're doing, and thank you for joining me on this conversation. And I hope that our paths cross again very soon.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today.